everybody. A warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Jannike, and today it's such an honor for me to be here with Jordan River. Jordan is the creator of Spirit Science, and he created Spirit Science in 2011, where his love for animation harmonized with his spiritual awakening. And his YouTube channel has almost 1 million subscribers to this day. And their intention with the channel is really to bring on healthy discussions on the new insights on connection with ancient understanding of the past, and also modern understanding of the universe. Hello, Jordan. How are you doing today? And much welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm good. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is great.
And this is a special time. How are you doing in these Corona times? Because I just want to mention it. I mean, people might see this interview later on, but still we're like in the midst of it. So how are you doing with that?
Yeah. Actually really well. It was a very interesting situation because right before coronavirus exploded and quarantine all shut down, I had this wave kind of come through me of like, I have to leave. Like coronavirus hadn't even really been making headlines yet, but I lived in Winnipeg in the middle of the city, and I had this anxiety, this feeling of like, you can't be here anymore. You have to go right now. And so I found this place out in nature, out near some mountains, and I moved. And then like within 2 weeks, everything got locked down. So I'm actually in a really beautiful environment. And then to top that off, because of the coronavirus whole thing, I've had this surge of like really wanting to learn and practice breath work, because breath work is shown to like rapidly increase the immune system. And so it actually just kind of very synchronistically has been providing me with these opportunities to strengthen myself, I think, and really reflect on myself, and I feel like for everybody, that's really the choice that we have, is to use the opportunity of the quarantine to grow and to learn and to evolve, or to just kind of blindly live in the fear of the concern of what's going on in the world. So yeah, for me, thank you for asking. For me, I'm doing pretty well, actually, keeping safe and keeping healthy. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing good as well. Like, I resonate with what you're saying. I mean, it was definitely a strange transition into like having to be all by myself all the time, like not being able to like hug my nieces and nephews. I think that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I can't hug them. I can't be with them. But also it's this great opportunity. And I see that I've now finally taken time to meditate much more and really connect. And I've had much more profound dreams, like telling me what's really important to me. So I feel like a lot is going on the inside. And I think, like you say, that this is a great opportunity in many ways. But I just want to say that maybe we'll talk more about it later on, because I just saw that you put out a video about the astrology part of it. Yeah. But there's so many things like I want to speak to you about today, and especially ancient history. But first, I just want to say that I've been following you for many years. I think all the way back to 2012 when I started my YouTube channel. And what I really appreciated so much was that you were bringing on these topics that was not really accessible, that I didn't find much information about, especially not in Norwegian. And then you made it in such a simple way that, with the visuals and the animation, I could understand. And I was like, is this really real? Like, does this exist? Like, I was really so excited when I discovered your channel. So I'm really grateful. I'm so grateful for the amazing work you do. So I just wanted to bring that on.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. It's really special to hear. And at the end of the day, like well, Spirit Science is really all about, like just kind of being in service to talk about these kind of subjects, like all of these things that society has said to be like, it's taboo, or it's pseudoscience, or it's, all of this like kind of ancient kind of mysticism that's really coming back. So thank you for being receptive. Thank you for, and like, the work that you're doing is helping a lot of people too, like in a really deep way, in a really real way. So, you know, congratulations also for stepping into that same, it's the same kind of journey. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. It kind of felt like, oh, it's such a great support for us who are seeking and are seeking answers. And for me, I feel like I cannot do anything else than this because it's so deep and so important. And then when you find like your allies online, in a sense, like speaking the same things that you've discovered, it's like, oh, that's really a great confirmation. And you feel like you're not alone, right? So let's go back to 2010, because it seems like to me, I just did some research, that you very quickly, in a sense, had a spiritual awakening, like a few weeks before Christmas, and then starting spirit science in 2011. Like mine has been so long, and you had all this knowledge like very fast. And you said in a video that there was one thing that was missing for you, and you found it in Junvaldo. I can't like pronounce his name. Junvaldo
Melchizedek, yeah.
Yes, you found it in his book. Can you share a little bit about what the missing link was for you?
I mean, his books really put everything together in a way that, I mean, you know, like spirit science is like and especially the first, you know, like from episode like 2, well, the first season, I guess, like the first 12 really is an amalgamation of a lot of different things, but Drunvalo's books, the Flower of Life books, are kind of at the heart of them, our heart of those episodes. And for me, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like, as you said, like I had this experience and then met some people and started this awakening journey. And but really, like, it was like, you know, I'd be researching astral projection and learning about chakras on the internet. And then like my mom actually dropped the Flower of Life book in my lap one day. She's like, it's time, you're ready for this. And I was, afterwards, I was frustrated. I was like, why didn't you've been carrying this information our whole lives and you never shared it with me? But it was great because the book itself, and like, or those 2 books really provided, it's not just like one thing. It was like a picture. It was like this unified whole, taking ancient history, all the mysticism, the sacred geometry, the astral projection, you know, like all of these different, like the aliens, UFOs, crop circles, the whole picture, the whole like expansive web of, you know, the rabbit hole, and made it into a complete narrative that could be understood. And that's really like, you know, like my, I want to say, ability with spirit science is not necessarily, I mean, it's become that, like understanding certain things, but it really was about just being able to translate it into a medium. Like I spent like 3 months just reading those books nonstop, but then it was taking, you know, basically the material and translating it into a video series, like a fun cartoon. And that's really where everything where all the magic happened, right? And like even in the videos themselves, I'm like mad love and props to Drunvalo, because he really put all this together. And the way that my journey has unfolded, I'm starting to see this pattern that it's not even necessarily like any individual person. It's like the wisdom of Thoth moving through people too. Like Drunvalo, you get into his stories and everything that he says is that like he was visited by Thoth, and consecutively over many years, Thoth and his angels and these guides like guided him to different spiritual masters around the world. And you know, there's some like, well, did he actually meet Thoth? Was he having lots of psychedelics? Like how did this whole thing happen? And you know, there's a lot of mystery around that. You know, Drunvalo says this is what happened. And the amazing thing is that after all of that seed of information was established on my journey, then several years later, I came to like the Hermetica and the Kabbalion, and specifically like the Hermetica and the Emerald Tablets and the writings that are like attributed to Thoth. And I started working with him directly, sort of thing. And then from enough practice with that, soon enough, like I've started having my own visionary experiences with Thoth. So like he's appeared to me mostly like in ayahuasca ceremonies, but also in dreams. And then most recently, this is a fun story if you want to hear a fun story. Most recently, he appeared to me during it's called the Manifestation Moon, one of the events that we do as a part of our online community, Spirit Mysteries. And there was one person during the manifestation movement, we each kind of go around in this kind of open circle and share our intentions and what we're trying to create and manifest and bring into the world. And then we all take a moment collectively to meditate on that energy. And then we like strengthen it over and over with every person who goes. And one person said guidance, that they were asking for guidance. So we went into the meditation, we went into the prayer for guidance. And then Thoth was like standing behind me, and I was like, oh, this is too much now. What's happening? And he synchronized this really funny thing, which was just like the morning before. I woke up in the morning, like 5 a.m, from this dream where I had met these hobbits. I know this is going to seem like a weird tangent. I'm going to bring it back around, I promise. Had this dream that I met these hobbits and we went on this journey. And when I woke up, I just like was feeling like there were cats all around me. And I was like, I don't know, like there's no cats. It's just energy, or it's just feelings. But like I had this whole experience. So I looked up on the local, cat pet adoption rescue kind of thing for my area, and sure enough, there's 2 cats up for adoption. One is named Frodo and one is named Sam. I let them. I was like, well, that's interesting, and I let it go. And then later on that day, we did the manifestation moon, and I had the experience with Thoth, and he specifically was holding a staff that had like one of those like ancient Egyptian cat heads that looked exactly like Frodo did in the picture on the website. And I was like, I was just going to let the dream go, but now I have to bring these guys into my life. So like somehow, I don't know if this is like, I have a wild imagination, or, you know, Thoth is genuinely like, I think the energy, the presence of that energy came through to support me bringing in some new friends into my life. And they're super amazing. They're like snuggling with each other over there. And
fascinating.
Yeah,
I think perhaps, or I don't know if I want to think it, but maybe it's like this, that everything that we have in our fantasy exists, because otherwise how would we get it into our fantasy in a sense? I don't know. It is like a wild thought, but also scary thought.
Well, you know, when you get into like astrology, what we start learning about is that this is a language to speak with and communicate with the forces of the universe, the forces of nature, and for the archetypes of what is within us. Like all of the planets are just reflections of energy, things that are within us, right? So when you learn about Neptune describes like illusions and dreams, and that you are dreaming your reality into being. So like, whether you have a mundane experience or a real experience, you know, if the science, the quantum physics is all describing that, like everything is sort of a reality, a hologram reality, right? It's like a mostly empty space on a quantum level, and moved by our thoughts and our feelings, then really like whatever kind of experience that you have is going to be, you know, essentially affecting and steering the life that you're living. And so like it's really like, what are you dreaming into being actively? And we start to blur the lines between what is dream and what is real, because you can live your dreams. It just takes the conscious will to do so.
Yeah, and it especially blur the lines when you are astral traveling a lot, which I did for a period. Then I've really felt that, but this is just as real as this. Oh, I shouldn't get crazy right now. Like, you know, this is reality. But I definitely felt that now I've experienced 2 realities, and they both seemed very real. And that kind of scared me as well, because I'm like, yeah, what is then real in a sense? But yeah, interesting. What I also appreciate with your with spirit science is that you're covering so many perspectives, and you're doing it in such a humble way, and also giving like this whole picture that I guess, you know, you were inspired by Drunvalo. However, let's like move to our ancient history that has always fascinated me a lot, and it's been a while since I've been talking about it. But I've always been in love with Egypt and been very drawn there. However, I've never been there. I hope to go one day. And I've always like been so curious about the Sumerians and how they were able to have so much knowledge and seem to be so advanced. And I even went to study to become a primary teacher just like 5 years ago, like an adult starting to study. And I brought this up in history like class, like, how is this possible? It just doesn't make sense. No, the pyramids are like 6,000 years old, and that's it. But I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like, how were they able to build these pyramids? And you know the story. So would you like to share what you have found out about how the Sumerians, all of a sudden, that we kind of went from being hunters and gatherers and to being this advanced like human beings, like creating these amazing things, and then the Sphinx and all these big beautiful structures in Egypt.
Yeah. Well, that is a loaded question when you say like, like, can you share everything you found out? I'm like, I mean, we've made like a 2.5 hour movie called the Sumerian Epic. That's not even done. It's going to be probably 4+ hours when it's complete. Breaking down a lot of this stuff. So first, have you seen the Sumerian Epic?
I think it came many years ago, right? Or
no, last year.
Okay, no, then I don't think I've seen it.
Okay, so you're in for a treat. I'll give you the cliff notes, but there is a like a 2.5 hour series. There's 5 episodes, and each are half an hour long that explore. It's called the Sumerian Epic, and it explores the very in-depth like Anunnaki story and the Sumerian tablet story, going with Nibiru and the crash, like the planet's explosion and everything, and then the Anunnaki seeding the human race and Adam and Eve and Lemuria and Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis, and like that's the whole story we're animating in like a really epic way. So
sounds amazing.
Yes, it's really fun. So basically what's in this like when you start learning about the Sumerian tablets, it becomes, again, like we were just describing, right? You kind of have to exist within 2 realities. The reality where these are all stories and these are all myths and there's no factual basis to it. And the reality where there's a lot of weird connections about things in history that seem to line up that would indicate otherwise, that these stories are more than myths. And it's been even a wild journey for me because like I learned about, it's like the Nibiru and the Anunnaki and the Sumerian, like all of the different stories and Sumerian tablet stories. And like a lot of it was like, oh, that's really weird and out there. And then oh, there's some things that actually like seem to fit. But the more that I learn about it, the more it like is creating this very complete picture of our history, like a very complete observable, like looking at the different like points in time and the physical remnants that we have and the stories that we have and how they line up. Like, for example, like there's flood myths all over the world, not just in the Bible, right? Like there's flood myths, and the Bible's, probably descended from the Sumerian versions, Atrahasis and Gilgamesh. But then there's flood myths in China. There's flood myths in Mesoamerica. There's flood myths all over the world, and it like they all seem to line up with each other in this particular point in time, indicating that there was actually some kind of event that caused probably the ice caps to melt and like flood over the world all at once, right? So they attribute like the event to various gods or deities and everything like that. But then even then, you start learning about the way that the word gods were interpreted, and sometimes it is relative to planets or celestial bodies, in addition to potentially ascended beings and what have you and stuff, right? Or these forces of the cosmos. So I really have to give shout outs to because I'm just like a river, just in the there's wisdom coming through me, but it's not from me. So like I have to give all the mad props to, in addition to Drunvalo, Graham Hancock is one in particular who has put a lot of this information together, because he's actually the one on the ground. He goes to Egypt and he goes to ancient Sumer and Babylon and stuff, and like explores the mysteries, like, and then writes these massive books about them, about how really what we're seeing is the remnants of an ancient civilization that existed a long time ago. Like as you're describing, the pyramids being built 6,000 years ago, there's very little evidence to suggest that that's true. Even inside of the Great Pyramid itself, they have like all of the writings of Egypt. You know, like the Egyptians love to write. They carved hieroglyphs on everything, but the Great Pyramid does not have any writings at all in it. But that somewhere deep inside, they found like one of the pharaoh's names carved on the top that doesn't, again, like the dating on that and like the way that it was written is just the whole thing doesn't match. But they see that and they go, oh, maybe he wrote, maybe he did it. You know, that particular pharaoh. But now there seems, sorry, yeah?
Yeah, and it's also how they are like aligned with the stars, like the pyramids. There's just so many things.
It seems to be very purposeful, doesn't it? It seems to be as if like the story, at least as far as the story goes, right? From the ancient history, like even the Spirit Science 12, the Hidden Human History movie, is like the pyramids, that at least gives us a narrative. It gives us something to go off of. It suggests that the pyramids were actually created as a part of our shift in consciousness, that we fell in consciousness and the pyramids were there as really kind of like an energetic construct. And we know that like the pyramid shape actually can generate energy. There's these crazy experiments David Wilcock wrote in the Source Field Investigations about how people use pyramid structures to like grow crops bigger and sharpen, like they could move the magnetics of a thing. They could sharpen razor blades inside of little pyramids and stuff. Like it's crazy things, the amount of like practical uses of pyramids. There has to be a video at some point. But yeah, like kind of as you're saying, it's like there's no logical explanation to say not only how these like primitive people could build these pyramids with such precision that they're aligned like to a super degree, you know, with the stars. It's baffling. It's baffling. And at the very least, it calls into the question of let's question this, you know, like I don't want to definitively say, oh, well, the pyramids were built by Thoth because of fall of consciousness. Maybe we don't know that, but the evidence and the stories that we currently have don't match. So at the very least, what we're exploring with these other stories is potential alternatives that might help make things make more sense. The biggest challenge, I think, for modern society is that the moment that we do that, everything crumbles. Like when we collectively recognize that we are, that if we prove Atlantis was real, we have this definitive 100% proof that there was an ancient Atlantis, the world changes overnight. Every religion will crumble.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in a bad way. Like all of the religions, all of the beliefs, all of the stories, all fit together to weave a narrative of the evolution of humanity. However, when we rigidly attach ourselves to it has to look this way, it has to appear this way, you know, it's like it's Jesus, period, or it's Krishna, period, or it's Buddha, and dogmatically say, not that most Christians, Buddhists, or, you know, Hindu people like have that isolation, but it does happen where like it's this dogmatic ideology that it has to be this way, and everyone who doesn't follow it is doomed to hell. But what if every different religion was actually describing sort of a core unified idea? And that really is not only, I mean, what spirit science is about, but like the core idea in Hermetics. Like you go, again, bringing it all back to Thoth and the writings attributed to Hermes, who was the Greek version of Thoth. It basically just says, it's like Hermetics is the practice of understanding that every religion, every spirituality are all speaking to the one. And there is an infinite number of ways that we can honor and revere and love the one, because the one is the creative force that moves through all things, and it is loving in nature. But it is also a very responsive field, because we are actively participating in the creative process as we live our lives. So we have this, you know, this reality construct of we live on a planet, and the laws of nature and the laws of the universe govern the planet. However, we also have like a layer of influence, and we can extend up into the skies and down into the earth, and we can dramatically influence and create within this layer. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really fun to think about, I guess.
Yeah, well,
I can
thank you
just
for
keep
sharing.
going and going.
It's like so many things there. Yeah, like what I feel some frustration about sometimes is that these stories are so wide apart. Like the story that we're brought up with in school, and this other story, they're so far apart. And like you say,
You talking about the relationship like between like the Bible and like the
no, not
Sumerian
the
myths?
Bible, but like no, I actually talk about science and
Okay.
natural science version of
Oh,
the
we evolved from monkeys 3,000 years ago, and
yes,
that's the whole
yes,
thing. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that
They're
narrative. Right.
so wide apart, and then from like we being influenced by extraterrestrial beings and all that, and I think that, like you said, if this comes out, or we start like opening up to it, or natural science starts to like open up to it, then everything like will change, because then they will open up for the spirit part, like that there is more, that
Yeah.
we are not the only ones in the universe, and that I think that bridge or that like switch is I don't know when it comes, like you're saying that and also there's so many systems that are dependent on things staying as they are, because I think like who will have control, if all this information comes out. So it's a huge thing. It's like I think economy is part of it. So yeah,
The ego
yeah,
gets attached as well,
yeah,
right? To
yeah,
having things be a certain way. Like we get
yeah.
stuck in our comfort, we get stuck in our
And the
existing
storybooks,
paradigm.
have to be changed. Like that's a huge.
Right. Well, and it's probably
Yeah,
scary too, because after
yeah,
years and years of not looking within and not checking ourselves, right, to have this big revelation that that we are actively like this, image of the creator, like this actively participating in the creative process. You're creating and steering your life. You're not just a meat suit floating through life, and when you die, you die. You are this soul, this light, enwrapped in a veil of the night. When people have that revelation, I think it scares them from having to actually look inside as well. So it's easier to just ignorance is bliss, the whole thing, and not see it. But then you also inflict unconscious suffering upon yourself, and that gets into, it's really the Buddhist, like the Dharma, the wheel of Dharma, and everything, and like your attachment is suffering, and you could free yourself if you want to. It just takes awareness of your attachments and letting them go. And in
yeah,
that, it's like what you're saying, it's like, who's going to be in control? Well, I think that if in the grand scheme of things, if we can acknowledge that, like, well, who's in the control of the universe, right? Like, well, God, I guess, but like, what is God, right? You kind of get into all this. And if we can take that idea and apply it to ourselves, who's in control of my body, my soul, like I am, like the capital I am, then if each one of us did that individually, then we could have societies that function in sort of this harmonious way where we each are our own sovereign beings, but we exist collectively as sovereign beings in harmony with nature. And like we trust people who have demonstrated qualities of heart that are, exceptional qualities of heart, to run, to be in leadership positions where necessary. And that just happens naturally through like the intentions of those who do it. I think the challenge that we have now is like the economic and the government systems are like, it's easy for someone to go into those and create power for themselves, but they can't live in true heart-centered authenticity to get there. There's so much red tape that's so logical, so many forms and so many little legal loopholes and things you need to learn and stuff. It just takes you away from that really like heart-centered, loving, free flow kind of natural state of being. So we have to be able to find a way to bring that feminine love, that
yeah.
nurturing, compassionate energy into the systems that we have. And we can have a new world very quickly.
Yeah, and it seems like the brilliance of the universe or the divine, that you have to go within to like open up to these things, in a sense that goes together. I was just watching a video with you where you talked about Pythagoras, and that was really interesting, like explaining his story coming from his homeland, going to Egypt, and he wasn't allowed into the mystery schools because he had so much intellectual knowledge, but he needed to have the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, I think that's the clue, that it doesn't help to have all these, you know, this intellectual knowledge or understandings of how the universe works, in a sense. Like, we need to like feel it. And that's like a very more feminine thing, actually, moving into our feelings and moving within. And I've always wondered or wished for, if scientists could be really like curious about the inner world, like astral traveling, for instance. Because I remember the first time I had like an out of body experience, I worked really hard to make that happen, but it happened all of a sudden. I was like, oh my God, like now everything has shifted for me. Now I know, like I have my own experience and no one can ever take that away from me. And why don't they study this? Like if they study this, they would get so many more answers. So I think that, yeah, I wish there was a more like openness, that these worlds kind of came more together. But I think like these times that we're in now is doing something with us. And I think, I do not know, but I think we're getting like some help from the universe to wake up faster, that the energy is going like, it's more intense energies right now, that we're kind of like forced to look within, and there the process starts. I don't know, hopefully in a way.
I completely agree. Like, we weren't slowing down on our own. So something happened that caused everybody to slow down. Like, go inside, take a deep breath, relax, you know, and nature is healing itself so quickly. She is so magical. Like, smog levels down, like lowest they've ever been in however many years, right? Like the canals of Venice, fish swimming through the clear water, like all these wonderful things in nature are coming about just for us to see it. Now, like, I don't know that humanity is going, like, we'll see what happens from this experience if people really learn and we really change. Like, there is going to be inevitable consequences, you know, economically and you know, with businesses and everything from this big change. Like, there's no question. The big question is really, what are we going to do with it? When, you know, when upwards of 50% of Americans lose their jobs, we have an opportunity to become beggars or to become creators and to make something new. And from the, like, sometimes, like, this is a part of many different spiritual traditions, right? It's like, in order to lay the foundation for something new, you have to be able to clear out the old, that which is not working. So this is really an opportunity for us collectively to do that. And no question, there's going to be suffering, and there's death, and there's, you know, there's struggle and tribulations, trials and tribulations for our species. But, you know, there's like, at the same time, it really can be seen as this blessing, this opportunity, if we are willing to go there with it, right? Like, if we're willing to face all of it and say, like, how can I be in service to everybody? And like, not just, maybe not even just everybody, but like the planet, like, because seeing the smog levels go down, it's like very clearly like, wow, look at the impact that humans have on the world. Are we going to put up with that for another, you know, like 500 years, 1,000 years, like into the future, before we all switch to solar panel flying cars or whatever? Like, are we gonna wait and take so long to get there, or can we implement some things quicker, as you were describing, right, to like speed up the process so that we can get there sooner? We can have a world where like everyone is respected and honored and cherished. And that's going to take not just our systems evolving, but our consciousness evolving. Like, we have to learn how to live with love and live with compassionate respect for each other and the world that we live on. And so far, it's like, that's just been like the human story, is like, yeah, making that connection. And when it really all boils down to it, a lot of it comes down to like our inner connection between our masculine and our feminine energies, like the two hemispheres of our brain to our heart. Like, those are all reflections of that connection that's been split. You know, the heart-mind connection is split. The left brain connection is split. So we're living like disconnected from our hearts and in our left brains. So it's like, yeah. So we just like bridge those together, bridge these together, and you can live with love. And you let go of attachments naturally, because the heart doesn't have any attachment. So the whole Buddhist suffering thing, you break yourself from the wheel of karma, because and suffering, just because when things that happen that were quote unquote bad, you know, even if it's a struggle, it's like you just sort of dance with it, you move with it, you flow with it like water, instead of rigidly fighting against the change. You know, like if someone was losing their job right now, they could be like really angry and like just getting really drunk and really depressed about how awful things are, right? Like that would be a rigid like fighting against it. But like flow with it, like what would that look like? Like what opens up as a result of that door closing? And yeah, that.
Yeah, I find that meditation has helped me, because I have another job, and all of a sudden, you know, very many people were laid off, and I found myself not having fear, and I was like, why am I so calm right now? Like when I think about it, it's really awful, but when I feel, I'm like totally okay. And it was almost like my mind was saying, or my ego was saying, you should worry, you should worry. But I was like, but I'm not worried. So I had this conversation like inside myself, and almost felt like guilty for not worrying in a sense. But I think like meditation has really helped me, having that feeling that I'm okay, like I'm taken care of. It will be okay. Either way, whatever happens, something will take care of me. So that's like, yeah, a very good feeling in these days. And I also was thinking about, like, we know that we're so global, we know we're connected, but now we're actually seeing it, like how connected we are, like how, and especially in business, and how global it is. So it's really, yeah, we're really like experiencing this suffering right now, like not just knowing that there's a suffering in the world, which I think it's, yeah. It's like my grandparents, you know, experienced the war. I've never experienced that, but this is like something I think I will remember all my life. So it's quite huge. I want to go back a little bit to the ancient past and Christianity. You mentioned, you know, the Bible and Christianity, and we talked about the ancient or the Sumerians and this other story in a sense. There were some mystery schools at that time, around like the Egyptian time, I think, in the Sumerian times that I've heard of, and I've been very curious about it. And I know that you're very into mysticism, and I love that, but I don't know too much about it. Can you tell us a little bit about what these mystery schools was about? Like we mentioned, Pythagoras didn't come in; he had to like meditate for 40 days or something like that. So what was it?
Yeah, well, a mystery school is essentially a sacred school of consciousness or conscious evolution or spiritual practice in some capacity. There have been many different kinds of mystery schools over the years, or the aeons, I suppose, better to say. And when you learn about some of the oldest ones, what they describe are things that sound impossible for us today. Like now, I guess the question is what sources do you choose to listen to? Because the mysteries were incredibly secretive. You don't have a lot of ancient writings of the mysteries until you get to around the ancient Greek era. And then you start to have these writings and these stories of people talking about these transformative, transcendent experiences that they had. Now, I've heard stories that came from channelings or other, like Drunvalo described from his visitations with Thoth and stuff, that in ancient Egypt, this was also found in like the Sophia Code, which is an incredible book. But it basically that in the oldest ancient mysteries that were given to us, you know, by the gods, whoever and whatever they may be, was that people were actually learning to become multidimensional and being able to move to different star systems and different planets. Like there was this one story about Hathor anchoring in basically like a teleportation, like the ability to teleport and move your body and your existence to Sirius, to the one of the brightest stars in our sky, and supposedly, according to many different channelings and different writings, one of our closest like star brother family of within our local sphere. Like if we have a family locally, right, then we also have like a celestial family. It's this idea, but much later on, like the writings of the Greeks described, like it's not necessarily that exciting, but still really amazing, because what it seemed as though they were doing is going into these private sacred places, learning very advanced information that not everybody's capable of understanding, and then making it real, like activating within them, often using psychedelics and probably breath work. I'm becoming more and more familiar with breath work and being like, oh, that was probably used a lot in history. Like, how could you not? Like, it's such a powerful tool. But they would actually do these like psychedelic shamanic ceremonies, and there's these amazing lines and writings from Greek sages and Egyptian alchemists in history that describe like the mysteries provided culture to civilization and brought people out of rustic savagery and took people into a place of like into the darkest of dark, where the greatest and lightest of light was illuminated brighter than the midday sun, but within. So it seems as though most definitely psychedelics were a big part of this. Like we even find lots of certain writings about soma in the ancient Hindu, and there's mushroom statues all over in the Mesoamerican and stuff like that. So the use of entheogens to connect on a spiritual level with themselves, with each other, with nature, with God, was like a common practice. But then what happened was that the mysteries essentially vanished after the rise of Christianity. It took about 300 years to transpire, but there were a number of mystery schools that existed. Like it all started in Egypt, but then they sort of expanded to other places as the culture, as the understanding of what the mystery schools were became known about. Then they were adopted in different cultures. So the Persians had mystery schools, the Greeks had mystery schools, and when many different mystery schools were formed as a result of like adopting the practices, but for a specific god, a specific deity, right? So like in the Egyptian pantheon, you might have a mystery, like the mysteries of Isis, or the mysteries of Hathor, and the mysteries of Osiris. And they all have different teachings because the essence of what that god represented was unique and it was different. Maybe one was a more mental school, like learning, the alchemical, you're learning the four elements and how they fit together and stuff. Maybe another one was a more intuitive, more feminine school, and it was more connected, like really connecting with your feelings and like being psychic and creating on like an intuitive level, right? So there's many different flavors of these mystery schools and ways that they came about. And eventually in the city of Alexandria, long after Egypt had been conquered, there was this Library of Alexandria that they created, which was like a cosmopolis. It was like a whole, like a universal learning center. Both the library and then like all of Alexandria itself was like a very open place for many different cultures to exist. And what we see back then is that the Jews, who had sort of their own experience of spirituality and religion, which was a very closed system, was now suddenly in a city with all of these a wide variety of mystery schools and mystery teachings and different gods and everything like that. So over a few hundred years, and as the generations changed, a lot of the Jews who had their Orthodox teachings kind of became Hellenized. They started to learn about the Greeks and the Greek practices and looking at God as this sort of supreme oneness, this force that moves through everything. And that became kind of appealing to the Jews, who had this very dogmatic idea that God was a patriarchal overlord who was jealous and had a lot of masculine traits. and so there was this shift that took place where not all the Jews, obviously, but many Jews sort of converted into looking at the world in a different way. And then at some point they wanted to make their religion, like the Judaism, be accessible on a mystery level, on a more esoteric level, rather than this, patriarchal masculine overlord version. And so a new narrative was described, which took a lot of the different pieces and different core ideas and put, from the Old Testament and from the mysteries things, and they put it all together into a new story. And this is essentially the birth of Gnosticism and really the birth of Christianity, at least according to many scholars. Like, I don't want to explicitly say, like, because when you hear the story, you're like, so you're saying there was no Jesus, like the whole thing was a story? And it's like, maybe, like, this is where we don't actually know. I feel intuitively like the Spirit of Christ is present, is real. Like, I've had experiences with Jesus. So I feel on that, like, this is the power of the mysteries, where things can be in two different paradigms at the same time. Because maybe the story of Jesus was at the very least elaborated on. Maybe it was a real guy who went through all of these experiences, but there's too many stories that are attributed to Jesus that are also attributed to Dionysus, Horus, Osiris, Pythagoras even. Pythagoras was said to walk on water and heal the sick and raise the dead when he came back from Egypt, which might even be a more plausible idea of where the stories of Jesus came from at all. Like, all the miracles is that a guy went to Egypt, he learned those like ascension level connections in Egypt before Egypt fell and was conquered. And he was doing all these tricks and things, and the stories were passed down and written and changed on the narrative of who they, came from. The point of this whole thing, though, is just to say that, like, essentially what happened was that the stories of Jesus and Christianity became so big that it was adopted into the Roman Catholic or the Roman Church or the Roman Empire, and became the Holy Roman Empire, though, and really established the Roman Catholic Church. And in doing so, they wiped out all of the mystery aspects of the spiritual traditions and the teachings that had come up. And what we're left with was this sort of hollowed out in exterior of the story. And we have that story, and we are like, that's the narrative, that's the only truth. And they forced people to believe this. They actually, like, crucified and killed people who didn't conform in the Roman Empire to believe specifically in the Christian doctrine. And as a result of that, 200 years later, we fell into the Dark Ages. Maybe it was 100. And we went through this 1,000-year period of the Dark Ages, this like very rigid time when people did not in mass celebrate the diversity of the soul and the vibrance within. They just prayed for 1,000 years that Jesus would one day come and save them, basically, or connect them with certain angels and whatnot.
We went into like being a victim instead of being empowered and knowing that we had the power. We had to like worship the one that had the power. And like, I felt we lost all spirituality. And Gnosticism, I found very interesting. I've actually looked into it many years ago. I was really into Gnosticism. And I learned a lot. Like, it's like, there's so many layers. You can always go deeper and deeper. And I found it very fascinating. And apparently Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know even how to pronounce it. Leonardo da Vinci. He, I've heard, also have had some sort of access to these mystery teachings somehow. So I think like it seems like that somebody have still been like protecting this knowledge, and then it seems like it's coming forward now.
Yeah,
that's like my impression.
Well, that's really the next part of the story, right? Because at the end of the Dark Ages, what got us out of it, or the mark of what was at the end of it, was the Renaissance. And you learn about the Renaissance, and what actually happened was that all of these old writings of the Greek philosophers and the writings attributed to Hermes suddenly reemerged, and it stimulated so much new awareness within people that people started waking up. And Renaissance actually means rebirth, which is a common, which might have even come from Hermetics, because having the spiritual rebirth experience, like letting your ego die in order to experience a higher reality, is a very fundamental part of that's written into like the principle of hermetics. So yeah, like the Renaissance was just the beginning, though, because we didn't have internet, you know, still so long ago, and we were still very indoctrinated into Catholicism and different versions of Christianity. So the Greek wisdom kind of made its way in and eventually established science like as we have it today. A lot of science actually does come from more Gnostic ideas, but it's been very separated from spirituality because of the rigidness that was imposed on it. Was like the natural swinging of the pendulum. We went so far on one side in the Dark Ages in this rigid belief system, and we just swung back the other way, and we're like, we don't want to do that, and we just separated spirituality from the mix, and we said it's secular only, you know, or it's only this specific scientific belief, and so it's just a natural progression looking at the swing of things. But as you're saying, right, like we have these waves and waves that have happened. Like, you know, there was the tarot revolution that happened first in the 13th century, 14th century, which aligned with the Renaissance. And then we, you know, had this like another wave of mysticism in like the early 20th century, like the early 1900s, late 1800s sort of thing. And now it's happening again. We just have these cycles and waves of people kind of progressively having these awakening up to higher experiences. Like same thing actually with the psychedelic revolution of the 1960s. That whole thing influenced like all of our computers today. Is like, thank God that Steve Jobs took LSD. Like, because he saw a vision of like putting things together in a way that people hadn't thought of yet. And so many more, like, you know, Alan Watts and Terence McKenna and these, like all of the wisdom that they gained in life from studying these different philosophies and taking mushrooms and all of these experiences, like it paved the way for us today to like where now we're like scientifically proving, oh yeah, actually we can use mushrooms to help people quit smoking. We can use ayahuasca to help people like cure diseases and stuff. Like all of these are like profound truths about what we can do with nature, with our bodies and with nature. And when we put them when we connect with nature in all the different ways that we can, it's really setting the stage for a new world. Like I think that even with this whole coronavirus thing, like who knows, maybe a few years from now there will be like a global universal acceptance of psychedelics and mystery practices and stuff, because they go hand in hand, right? Like if you're wanting to use a plant medicine to create healing, all that's really required is that you do it in a shamanic or ceremonial space. Like you honor it as a thing and not like a party drug. You honor it as a sacred tool that you can use. And now you're basically just doing this with the exact same thing that the mystery school initiates did 2,000 years ago. So it's very interesting. Yeah, we're all coming back, but now we have the internet. We have this more advanced technology for communicating with each other. And so ideas can spread faster. People can wake up faster, and collectively we can all like really, really wake up into living with awareness that we're connected and a part of each other. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating with ayahuasca, like it pops up everywhere. Or I don't know if it's just me that, you know, 4 years ago I started becoming interested in it, and then it popped up everywhere. But now I really feel like it's everywhere. But I tried it or did it my first time before Christmas. And then I had prepared myself for 4 years, and I felt really ready. And I felt really that what they say, that Mother Ayahuasca was really calling for me. I felt it so strong, like I had to do it. And it was amazing. For me, I had this amazing experience of creation, like that everything that is created is basically created out of pure ecstasy and joy. Like Mother Earth it was so fantastic. Like I was experiencing or feeling that I was Mother Earth. Like it felt like I was experiencing how it was like to be her, and how she was just birthing with joy and joy and joy. And I was just laughing, and it was just so magical. And after that, I had this feeling that everything, like even this glass, is joy. And after that, I've looked at everything, like objects and whatever, as like, oh, joy. So that was like a really profound experience. And I also had some other experiences. But I love to hear, you went to, where was it? Costa Rica, right?
Yeah.
To this place where it's really
Rhythmia.
like a Rhythmia, like a renowned place that many YouTubers have been to. What was your, or would you like to share like one of your most profound experiences, or how you perhaps changed after that trip?
Oh man, that's also a loaded question. Okay.
If you want, like,
I know. I mean, like, I'll let me start with the second. Like, there's okay.
Change you, like,
Yeah. There's very few things that I can say in my life completely changed my life or completely like saved my life. Rhythmia is one of them, and actually Rhythmia is at the top of the list. Now, of course, it's the plant medicine, but it's the space that Rhythmia creates also that really makes it really special. You know, I had been really struggling for a long time in how to create spirit science and do all the things that I want to do, and like really wrestling with, I guess, just like my own ego, my own self, you know, and like the different conditions and ideas and beliefs that I'd had from growing up and everything like that. And I'd had psychedelic experiences that always like raised my awareness, but Rhythmia really took me to another level, especially from going there multiple times, because I've been there a few times now, and being able to do those ceremonies. It's like all of the core beliefs and ideas that I had about who I thought I was and what I was doing and how I was doing it and everything like that. Like the medicine just revealed all of it and really just allowed, I guess, just made a space for me, for my heart to shine, to come in more fully, for me to live fully from here, or at least at a much, you know, I think that we always can progressively get greater and greater. So, but like, you know, to really just get rid of all of the ego and get me really centered on truth, love, and authenticity. And that was actually, you know, that was, I think, the first time that, if I'm speaking to a specific experience, the very first time that I saw Thoth in a journey, on an ayahuasca journey, was, I remember I was like, it was kind of in like a void space, and suddenly like he was there standing in front of me as if like kind of like the carving of him, but like as a maybe like a statue, but like he's holding out, you know, the traditional picture of him like holding out you know, a tablet, and he's carving on it because he's the god of writing. And I in this moment, like I just kind of watched myself, like I did it, but I also watched myself do it. So it's like throw myself at his feet, and I said, please just bless me with your wisdom. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know the truth. And please just, you know, like I was kind of reflecting actually a line from the Hermetica. And now that I think about it, living out in the dream state, you know, like my experience of doing this with him, that he did with his guide. Because he said, you know, he entered into the void and he saw Poimandres, who is the shepherd of men. It's kind of describing like the mind of God in a form that can communicate. And Thoth threw himself at Poimandres' feet and said, please bless me with your wisdom. And his vision opened up and he had this whole psychedelic journey, you know. And so I did that with this Thoth statue, and I was, or like this, you know, him as this very, he's like massive in front of me. And I just humbled myself and I said, you know, bless me with your wisdom. And his tablet that he was holding exploded with water, and it carried down and it sort of caught me in its current. And I flowed down with this river for quite a ways until eventually I landed in front of like, actually, it's kind of like there's a movie, The Road to El Dorado, where they come in front of this like giant rock. It was kind of like that, but the rock, I kind of like landed in this little clearing, I guess, in the void, where the waters dropped me off, and right in front of me was this large tablet of that Thoth it was like the tablet that he was drawing on that was so big. Now I'm in front of it. And on it, it said 3 sentences. It said, truth is the law, love is the law, authenticity is the law. And one of the things about Hermetics, when you read like the Emerald Tablets and Hermetic principles and stuff, is that there are laws of the universe. Like there are laws of people. There's laws of humanity that we've created for ourselves, you know, stop signs, and how things work and stuff, you know, society and stuff. But at a much greater and more intimate level with the fabric of existence are cosmic laws, universal laws that everything is built off of fundamentally, that like the way that reality forms, the reason that trees grow in the way that they do, with leaves going up and out and roots going down and not the other way around and everything, is purely due to cosmic law. Like things work in harmony with cosmic law, and we are just not aligned with the cosmic law. We don't understand it. We haven't learned it. Or at least imposed that everyone live by it. So, you know, we have the world that we have. But at the core of these cosmic laws, what I was given was this like truth, love, and authenticity. And the reason why those are they're so simple, yet really like living from them, like living with love every moment of every day, living authentically, not lying to yourself, not, you know, like being true to yourself, being honest with others. If someone asks you a question, don't lie to them, right? Like be honest, be authentic, and be truthful, be in your truth, stand for what is right, stand for what is true. All of these kind of weave together to provide like a framework that we can live by to live like a perfect life. And what is perfect? One that is in alignment with the greater everything, right? Like one that is in harmony with the world and with nature and with God and ourselves and each other. So I guess, I mean, that's one story. I don't even know if I would say it's the most impactful, just because the quantity and quality of the different experiences that I've had have been amazing. And they always take me farther. They always build off of each other too. So the first one was the most amazing until I had the second one, and it was like added to it. It's not individual journeys. They all fit together. But my experiences at Rhythmia have completely, like, they have guided me to mentors. Like the medicine itself, it's not even necessarily like the people at Rhythmia, although the people at Rhythmia are amazing. I just want to give them a shout out because the staff there are so loving and so caring and so kind. But the medicine itself like led me to the mentors I needed to be able to live at a greater level, to do more, to be more of who I really am. And all of this happened really just because of that opportunity. So I'm really grateful for Rhythmia. And there's my little exposition there about ayahuasca.
Thank you for sharing. It's so interesting to listen to, especially when I've done it myself. And I, like, right before I was going, I don't know if that's very wise to do, but I was just so curious. So I was like binging videos online about like all kinds of experiences. And I watched your video as well. It was super good and super helpful because I was a bit like, what am I going into? What have I signed up for? But I can really recommend to watch that for everyone who is interested in learning more. The video that Jordan has made about his ayahuasca experiences and where he went to Rhythmia. It was a really great film. So yeah, for me, it wasn't these, what I was surprised about was that I didn't have any experience in the ayahuasca that made me understand myself. Like it wasn't, I was expecting that I was going to see my shadows and my darkness and what I needed to work with. But what I experienced was this big spiritual, like universal things, either how creation works or what was the other thing? Well, I saw through dimensions, like I was like all out there, but I wasn't like so much inside of me. And I'm curious about that. I haven't really found the answer, but why I didn't have a more like personal experience, why I got this, these questions to like bigger answers, but not to myself. And I've always been very curious about the big questions. So I guess that was my first dose. I don't know, like, here you go, Janneke, like we're going to show you a bit about how things work because you're so curious. But I'm also curious about learning about myself, right? So I found that interesting. But yeah, but I think that the plant is giving you what you need. I really trust that.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you get visions of, like you said, you know, you kind of leave your body and you go and connect into everything. And then like a year later, you'll try it again. And suddenly like all of that will be like, you'll have another experience, but it'll make it more personal to you. So like it's a weaving, right? In and out. And as you said, like perhaps there was something great for you to learn on that outer layer so that you could come and deliver that. You can share that with people, and you could maybe even bring it into yourself. Like there's a saying that I really love that says that you are the universe, and so the more of you, more of the universe that you take in, the more of you that you become. So going out is just as valuable as going in, as long as it's like you're weaving the energy and the information back and forth, just expanding your field. I like to actually look at, like, you know, in spirit science, we explored like sort of the circle and the square kind of human energy field sort of thing. I think that was episode 11. So, hey buddy.
Oh.
so the circle, okay, I'm going to have to put you down because you're going to be distracting. I love you. And I'll give you some food in a little bit. Here you go. So the circle and square, you know, kind of shows the human energy field as like the circle is like the expansive infinite field, and the square is like the physical body and the limits of it. But there's another depth to this drawing that I don't think we explored in that video, which is that what you are is not what's inside of the circle and square or what's outside of the circle and square, but like the boundary line in the middle. You are the awareness of both of them. So like me, you know, as a being, I don't want to identify as like I am everything that's inside of me or everything that's outside of me, but like the exchange of energy between the two. And like even on a basic level, breathing, where does air go from being external to internal? Like we're always breathing, we're taking in something outside and then pushing or letting it out for something from inside outside. Like where does that shift from being internal and external? And it's like, it's not a specific place, it's a flow. It's a constantly moving, energy is moving into you and out in every dimension. So it's, you know, if it's physical, like you're eating or you're walking and you're taking in new environments, like you're taking in the light of a new environment as you walk through a forest or you walk through a city. But then also as you think about new ideas, as you watch a show, as you watch a YouTube video, as you read a book, you're taking in new ideas that then go inside of you so that you can express them out. You're eating food, it comes in, it goes out. You know, like all of the, like we're not a static I am that I am box of like a limitation thing. You're like a continual flowing torus of energy that things are constantly coming in and out of you. And I think maybe there's this like the Institute of Heart Math have shown that your energy field of your body is a giant torus, and that your heart is the center of that toroidal field. So if the heart is open and the heart is activated, then it is a purification center. It is a processor for all the information that comes in. So even if something harmful comes in, and I don't mean physically like poison or whatever, but I mean like you know, like an idea that's a non-in-resonance or a challenging circumstance or you know, global event in history, then no matter what it is, you are observing it from the heart, and it purifies the experience so that you have a greater level of wisdom and responsibility in your ability to act. And actually, just because I feel like I spoke on it, now I have to complete that train of thought, which is that if you ingested like a poison, you could also potentially do the same thing. It probably depends on the intensity of it. But I just was thinking of Wim Hof for a moment, and how he actually did an experiment where multiple times, I believe now, where they've injected him with a poison, and he uses his breath work and raises his immune system to combat the poison, which is really amazing. And another example of like how, and the breath is related with the heart, like nested together in that part of the body. So it's through the breath that we connect with the heart on a deeper level. So they kind of go hand in hand, actually.
Wow, thanks for like explaining that in a sense. And actually, what interesting that you said it, because I had forgotten about it. I was just like, what happened on day two? What happened on day two? But what happened was that I actually experienced that the universe was inside of me, just like you were saying. Like I cannot remember like what was the one first day or the next day, but I think it was the second day where all of a sudden like I opened up, like I felt I was like expanding inside, and then I saw that the universe was inside of me. And was really interesting because the shaman was saying, yeah, now I remember, because the day before I didn't have any experience. I was so disappointed, like nothing happened. I was just purging, and I was like, oh, I was really like expecting so much, and I knew that I try not to expect, but I was expecting. And then nothing happened, and I got like, I went totally down, and I cried and I cried, and I went to the shaman, and he was saying, you know, you'll get your experience, and you will. It was incredible. He was saying, you will experience that the universe is inside of you. And I thought it was just, you know, I don't know, saying it. I didn't have like trust there and then. But then the next day I like really worked on in the day to accept like whatever happened. If I'm not getting any experience this weekend, I will accept that too. Like I will trust that then I'm supposed to have that experience. I'm not experiencing anything. But then that next day that happened where I've all of a sudden like become so big, and it was inside of me, this universe. And it just lasted for a few seconds, but I had that experience, and that was like amazing. And the interesting thing was that the shaman was sitting right in front of me, and he said, now you see that the universe is inside of you. And I was like, how can he see that? Oh, you know, wow. I'm so open-minded in many ways, but still like I'm skeptical. Like I have a very rational mind, so it still like blows my mind when these things happen. So that was amazing.
That's a beautiful story.
No,
And it seems like you learned two things actually. The first one was that expectation is a part.
Oh, the cat's
throwing things. It's fine. Expectation is a partner of disappointment. So when you're expecting something to happen, it couldn't happen, and all that you were left with was disappointment until you were able to let go of the expectation, and then boom, it happened.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. I just love to hear, what are you working on right now?
Oh gosh, that's just every question today is loaded. No, it's good. So right now we have Spirit Mysteries, which is like our own modern mystery school that I was kind of guided to create after another week. Actually, the week in the video in the movie Are Miracles Real, where I described that Thoth was appearing and this and that. After that week, I was guided to a mentor to create, to get some assistance in creating a Spirit Mystery School. So right now we're working on Spirit Mysteries and like a new version of the Emerald Tablets and like an Emerald Tablets series, exploring these like ancient Atlantean writings in a fun way. So working on that, and then at the same time, I also am working with a team in producing kind of a very like a wide range of content for YouTube. So every week right now we post 3 videos a week. So Mondays we post a new spirit science. On Wednesdays we post a skit, which is just like a cute, funny little short thing. And then on Friday we have a new series called Hidden Spirituality, which basically is like breaking down how a lot of movies and TV shows, while they may seem like just, you know, thriller, action, adventure, whatever kind of content, whatever they are actually encoded spiritual lessons and encoded or are encoded with lots of little hidden spiritual cues and lessons and stuff throughout the movies. So that's like a really fun series that we do, and I'm really excited about it, which just was inspired because I saw Airbender several years ago, which is like a really fun show about moving the 4 elements with your body, like lifting a rock with your mind, or, you know, like shooting fireballs and stuff. But the whole thing was, I was like, I just want to make a video about this. It's so cool. And eventually that inspiration transformed into this full series of just like exploring spirituality and in modern like pop culture stuff. So Yeah, that's pretty much like the range of what we're working on is like all the stuff inside of Spirit Mysteries, and also the YouTube, 3 videos a week on YouTube.
Awesome. So you also have actually a mystery school that is outside YouTube that you can actually sign up for, and like if you really want to delve deeper, because this is something I would be interested in.
Yeah. We fully have a Spirit Mystery School available. It's spiritmysteries.com. You can go and check it out, and there's lots to do and see on that site.
Amazing. Well, I know you're super busy creating everything you do. I'm like, where do you get the time? So I'm just really grateful that you took the time to be here today and for me to introduce you to those who don't know your work already, especially in Scandinavia. So I just got to say, check out Spirit Science. You're really in for a treat, everybody. So thank you so much, Jordan, for showing up today.
Thank you, Yannicki. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And thank you for watching, everybody. Much light from the US and Norway. Bye-bye.
Bye.